I'd like to tell you a little bit about my grandma Sampson. Her name was Irene Lloyd Sampson. She had a beautiful voice, singing voice, and every time there was a funeral in the valley, they would call on Uncle George, my grandfather, and my grandmother, and they would sing at all the funerals. But the thing I'd like to tell you about my grandmother is how sweet she was, how kind she was. If you ever needed anything, you didn't go to Grandpa, he'd always say no. If you wanted to go swimming uptown and you needed a dime, he'd say, no, I don't have a dime. So you'd finally figure out how not to deal with him, and you'd go to Grandma and say, hey, I want to go swimming uptown today or tomorrow. Do you have a dime I could borrow? She'd say, sure. She had this little purse that she'd always carry change in, and she'd reach in there and find a dime and give it to you. She was very kind, very loving, very sweet, just a very good person. She was a musical lady and came from a musical family. She played the violin. She could play the piano, but her piano idea of playing the piano was just playing chords. So if you said, Grandma, would you play a song for me? She'd say, how does it go? And so you'd sing a verse or so, and then in just a minute she could play that tune for you. So she's kind of an amazing lady. Grandma Sampson, Irene Lloyd, one of the great ladies of the world. She died in 1965, I think June of 65, and I had just 2 or 3 months left on my mission. Okay, I'd like to tell a story about my grandma Tripp. She loved board games. And of course, this is back in, 1920 and what have you. And one of the games she liked was Chinese checkers. Can you see that okay? And she was brutal. I mean, there was a lot of board games she had, Parcheesi and Monopoly and different things. But she was brutal. She would beat up on anybody. And once the game started, she was after the win. It didn't matter if she was going against her little grandchildren. They're 6, 7, 8, 10 years old. She would just pound them in the ground. You could not beat her in anything. And one of my favorite games, I haven't played it for quite a while, but it's Chinese checkers. It's kind of a fun game. And back in those days, they didn't have a whole lot of entertainment. They had radio, and that was about it. So you could set up a game and then leave it on the table there for a long time and it wouldn't get lost. The grandmother was very competitive. Her name was Inez, I-N-E-Z, Wilkins Tripp. Okay, I'd like to tell you a couple of stories about my grandparents, my mother's parents, Grandma and Grandpa Tripp, and then a couple of stories about my father's parents, Grandma and Grandpa Sampson. The first time my grandfather met his wife, she was 17 and he was 40. This is out in Callao, out on the West Desert. My grandfather was a sheep herder, had a couple of thousand head of sheep with his brother. And as he was coming in one night with his horses and his sheep wagon, he came into the yard there. It's a big farming. He had a lot of acres. My grandmother was standing there by the gate and he said, hey, little girl, can you open the gate for me? So she opened the gate and he drove his horses in. And then somehow, I don't know exactly the courtship, but at that point he viewed her as a little girl. Now she wasn't very big. She was built more like Sabrina or Lindsay, maybe 5 feet tall. And somehow they dated, and 6 years later they got married. She was 23, he was 46. Their first child, they were actually married on February 20th, 1918. They had their first child on December 20th, 1918. That was Uncle Mark. They had their second child on December 16th, 1919, and that was my mother Phyllis. And so that pattern went on every couple of years for the next 25 years, or maybe 26 years. And my grandmother gave birth to number 13 child, Uncle Russell, when she was 46. My grandfather was 69 and 10 months old when his last baby was born. I challenge any of my children to match that record.